When war broke out in 1949, no, 45, I had 3 brothers. My 3 eldest brothers had enlisted, were enlisted. 2 in the RAF and 1 in the Navy. My eldest brother, David, enlisted before the war started. And he flew as an acting squadron leader in the Battle of Britain. My second eldest brother was with the RAF in Scotland, Reigate. And my third eldest brother was sub-lieutenant in the Channel on minesweepers, the Navy. Now, it was a hard time for my parents to have their 3 eldest out of 7 acting in the war. My brother David survived the Battle of Britain. It wasn't until his funeral that we learned the truth. My parents learned the truth of how he died. At the funeral was his flight lieutenant, Frank Charman, and he told my parents that it should have been his funeral, not David's. Apparently what happened, because of the shortage of aeroplanes in the war, they all had to be tested very quickly as they returned from battle. And David, being in charge of this particular event, his flight lieutenant, Frank, was to test our plane that there was obviously some doubt about. But David refused to let him. He said, "No, I'm taking that plane up because you're married and you have a child." And the plane shattered in the air. It was a testimony to his Christianity. Like Christ, he was a martyr. On his last leave, he gave me a book, a Christian book. I was 8 years old. It was called A Peek Behind the Scenes by Mrs. O.S. Walton. I read and reread it. I wasn't a Christian at the time, but I think God had his hand on my life. That book was very precious and always has been. It showed me Dave was a Christian. And I thank God for the memory. The memory, as difficult as it is now after so many years, but I do remember his smile. I do remember the time he brought his padre home to my family's house. I remember, I can see him now holding we had a cat called Blackie, and holding Blackie with a great big smile on his face in our garden at home, talking to the padre. It's so good to know that he was a Christian. And also my brother Bob, who was in the Navy, he too was a Christian. And he died quite recently. But it is with great joy that I know that as Christians we will meet again, and we'll be able to talk about many things together, perhaps, I don't know, so many memories. But what a future we have. What a future of peace and joy and reunion with our loved ones. So I thank God with all my heart for the family I was brought up in and for the experiences I had.